All right. 93, 93, 93. Do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. Love of the law, love under will. All right. Let me get this stuff out the background. So, this extra stuff. All right. So for those who are not aware, for those who don't know, we have the great American eclipse approaching us as we speak. I have the chart pulled up right now. The first city it's going to hit in America is Eagle Pass, Texas. Eagle Pass, Texas. Right now it's going through Central America. It hit Central America about 11:07, and again that's West Coast time. So East Coast time that would have been 2 p.m. So I guess it's like 2:35 East Coast time, 1:35 Central time, then 12:35 Mountain time. And it's gonna hit the border of Eagle Pass. Let me give you the exact time. About 11, let's see. See if I can get the exact time here. Okay. So it's actually already in Caryville. So let me see what time. Let me see the exact time of when it actually hit. So it was about 11:20. So about 20 minutes ago, 15, 20 minutes ago, it hit the border of North America. Now, what's the big deal? Well, it just so happens to align with the unveiling or the revealing of the book of the law. Why is that even important? Because according to NASA, they have APEP missiles that they are shooting into the Earth's ionosphere, which is between 55 and 310 miles above the ground. And this is where all the satellites are. All the satellites are in the ionosphere, right? So they're going to launch. NASA is going to launch APEP missiles into this field to study the reactions that the sudden blackening of the sun has on communications. Now they just so happen to be doing this during a Mercury retrograde, which is when communications is already supposed to be all over the place anyway. So the fact that NASA wants to experiment with these APEP missiles during a Mercury retrograde, during this total blackening of, because for those who don't understand what the eclipse is, it's when the moon is between the earth and the sun. So you have the sun, you have the moon, and you have earth. So the moon is blocking the light of the sun. Now, the only reason that this can even happen is because things had to be aligned perfectly. So this is not a result of, what do they say, the Big Bang Theory, where things just blew up and just randomly, they just went wherever they went, and it just is what it is. According to science, the only reason this is even possible, because the Earth is the only planet that goes through total eclipses. So this is a phenomena exclusive to the Earth. And the only reason that this can even happen is because the alignments of the sun, 93 million miles from the sun, the alignments from the Earth to the moon, which is like over 200,000 miles. This is only possible if these things were perfectly and mathematically aligned and sound. So this took intelligence. This is, you can say, intelligent design. This couldn't just happen haphazardly. It's just it. The Earth would have been too big. The Moon would have been too small. The Sun would have been too far away from the planet. It's just way too many variables for it to just be random, even though they would still push that agenda. But this is a result of divine intelligence or even demonic intelligence, depending on which side you want to view it from. Regardless of the fact, the reason they call it Apep missiles, for those who don't know, Apep is an Egyptian deity, the Egyptian deity of chaos. So here we go once again with this Egyptian shit. It's taking us right back to Thelema, it's taking us to Apep. Whenever we have the blackening of the sun, according to Egyptian mythology, Ra takes his boat into the underworld every night and has to defeat Apep in order for the sun to rise again. But the most interesting fact of that story is that the deity or the god or the principle that fights off Apep when Ra takes his boat into the underworld is Set. Set is the one who fights off Apep. Now, as we know, normally Set is depicted as negative, sinister, and evil based off of what he did to Osiris or Asar. However, in this particular case, this is his positive attributes because without Set, the sun will fail to make it out of the underworld. So it is only because of Set, according to Egyptian mythology, that the sun even rises every day. So on one hand, while Set has this negative reputation, in this particular instance, it's actually positive. So we're dealing with, you can say, a law of reversal, because we can neither look at something as positive or negative. We're not supposed to be looking at none of the deities as positive or negative because they all have both principles, especially when it comes to Egyptian mythology, because it shows you the positive and negative qualities of the deities. It's the same thing with Asar. Asar, as intelligent as he was, and as you can say positive as he was, he still engaged in what is called wine, which is how Nephis was able to seduce him and have Anubis, which later became the lord of the underworld. So we see there's all type of mischievous acts going on. Just to let it be known, it's not to be looked at as positive or negative, but to show the duality within all principles. So all principles have duality. So in the sense of Apep being shot into the ionosphere, Apep missiles during the total solar eclipse. And we know America is called the Great American Eclipse, and America is heavily influenced by, of course, the Egyptian mythology. Ever since the discovery of King Tut, America has had a fascination with Egypt, even naming some of its cities after Egyptian cities, making Egyptian, architecture. Is, in the Grand Canyon is deities named after, there's certain canyons in the Grand Canyon named after Egyptian deities, so on and so forth. So the Egyptian influence in America is evident, for those who have done the history. Again, ever since the discovery of King Tut. And the only material that predicted the discovery of King Tut was the Book of the Law. Because all throughout the Book of the Law, it talks about the child God. King Tut was a child pharaoh, the boy pharaoh as they call him. So the Book of the Law came out before the discovery of King Tut, talking about the child God. Then when the child God is discovered, the child pharaoh is discovered, now America has this fascination with Egypt. They started making Egyptian movies and all type of shit. Like if you do the history, you're like, okay, well, this America started making those Egyptian movies and doing all type of Egyptian shit because that sparked the world interest. The original spark in the interest of Egypt was due to Napoleon when Napoleon was in Egypt during the French Revolution. That's when he brought a lot of drawers. They began to document Egyptian culture when they was over there. And that's basically the beginnings of what we call Egyptology. The beginnings of Egyptology is due to Napoleon, which is another polarizing figure. Some consider positive, some consider negative. It's just another aspect of duality. And that can go for any leader. That can go for any principle, any person, any being. It also falls on the eighth day. The eighth day, as we know, is the day of Saturn. The number 8 takes us to Saturn, which is a malefic energy. That's why I mentioned Set. Because normally Saturn or Set or Satan is viewed as a malefic energy. However, in this case, you see it is being viewed as positive. The positive aspects of malefic energy. Because that's where the devil card comes from, which is a degree of Capricorn, which is transmuting negative energy into positive energy. So in this particular eclipse, you can say the lesson of this particular eclipse is already known. We're already dealing with the 8 because 2024 is already at 8 years. So we're already dealing with the 8. So the fact that the solar eclipse also takes place on another 8 degree, that's just further clarifying the ultimate message of this will be the time or the phase because this happens at once every 20 years. So this will not happen again for another 20 years for those who don't know. So this is a once in a generational event. But this is letting you know, okay, for the next 20 years, the whole theme is going to be transmuting negative energy into positive energy, meaning it's going to be an abundance of negative energy. And if you're not mentally strong enough, it's going to drown you. You're going to be drowned in the negativity. However, you can transmute it, you can flip it. Now let's look at this from a Western as well as a Vedic perspective. Because I have both charts already opened up here. I did a little bit of preparation this time because normally I don't do any preparations, but I'm okay, let me at least open up the chart. And just give a brief synopsis of what's going on here. So, Western wise, the sun is currently in Aries. However, Vedic wise, the sun is in Pisces. The reason why I'm comparing both of these is for you to be able to see which direction you resonate with. So in your atmosphere, in your city, wherever you may be on the planet, does it feel like the sun is in Aries or does it feel like the sun is in Pisces? The sun and the moon, because the sun and the moon are conjunct. They're currently conjunct. Let's put it this way. The strongest planet from the Western perspective right now is the sun because the sun is exalted in Aries. Whenever the sun is in Aries, it's in its most powerful position. So right now, according to Western astrology, the sun is at its most powerful position. The sun is at its peak currently. However, the strongest planet from the Vedic perspective is actually Venus, which is in Pisces. Whenever Venus is in Pisces, Venus is at its peak. So you ask yourself, is the sun at its peak right now? Do you feel the solar energies of Aries? Because that should be the dominating principle. Or do you more so feel the rays of Venus, aka Lucifer in Pisces? Do you feel Lucifer in Pisces or do you feel Sun in Aries? One is relating to the spirit, one is relating to the soul. Do you feel the spirit of Aries? Do you feel the soul of Pisces? I'm not going to really talk about houses because, as we know, the houses are determined based on your location. So I'm in Vegas, so the first house is Cancer, but of course that's going to be different depending on your locations. So there's no need to talk about the houses. We can just talk about the aspects. Venus has a conjunction with Neptune right now, which is also in Pisces. Venus and Neptune are conjunct in Pisces. The only difference is, Vedic wise, Venus is conjunct Neptune, and they are both in Pisces. In the Western form, Venus is in Aries, Neptune is still in Pisces. So let me make this a little bit more plain, because we can take it to the tarot. Let me make it even more plain. With the sun being at 19 degrees Aries, that means the sun is resonating with the Three of Wands. The Three of Wands, when the sun is in 26 degrees Pisces, which is the Vedic position, it represents the 10 of Cups. So do you ask yourself, when you look at the 10 of Cups, is that the energy that it's reflecting? Or is the energy the Three of Wands? The Three of Wands is Aries being influenced by the sun. Again, the sun exalted in Aries. Or Ten of Cups, which is Pisces, being influenced by Mars. This is basically when the waters have hit their peak, and now they're about to dissolve back into the Ace. However, when we look at the Three of Wands, the energy is really just getting started. It's at its peak before it descends. So do you feel a combination of Aries and the sun, or do you feel a combination of Pisces and Mars? Is it the Ten of Cups, or is it the Three of Wands? The 10 takes us to Malkuth. The 3 takes us to Bina, aka Saturn. So the 10 essentially is the Earth. So Vedic wise, because it's the 10 of Cups, the 10 takes us to Malkuth, which is the Earth. So the energy, even though it's the 10 of Cups, is very earthly, is directly affecting the Earth. Versus Saturn, because it's the 3, Bina, which is understanding. 10 is the kingdom. So essentially, from the Western perspective, we're dealing with understanding, again, which is Saturn, which is the tough lessons, because it's on the left side of the tree, the left hand path. So that's the path of severity. Malkuth is the middle pillar. So it's between severity and mercy. It has a touch of severity, it has a touch of mercy, because it's right in the middle. It has masculine and feminine, versus the Saturn is strictly feminine. So, Western wise, we're in the Three of Wands, dealing with understanding. The Three of Wands represents virtue, the understanding of your virtue. So, from the Western perspective, do you have an understanding of your own virtues? Your virtues, again, you can say things that are exclusive to you, exclusive to yourself, your virtues, your principles. Do you have an understanding of your virtues? Versus from an Eastern perspective, the Ten of Cups, which is sadisty, again, which is the overflowing of the emotions towards the kingdom. So it's like rain being poured upon the kingdom. So the kingdom is being rained on as a result of all the emotional currency you have built up. So essentially, from a Vedic perspective, this is the time to push out all of that. You can say emotional energy, your emotional currency. This is the time to cleanse your emotional currency, because this is Pisces influenced by Mars. Mars takes us to the Tower card. When we look at the Tower card, we're looking at utter destruction. This is the ashes before the rising of the phoenix. Everything must be destroyed. So, from a Vedic perspective, a Eastern perspective, this is the time to push out that emotional currency to cleanse yourself emotionally. Western wise, this is the time to build up your virtues, to build up your spirit, to become, you could say, more spiritual, more involved with the fire element, more involved with the archetypal plane versus the Ten of Cups. That's more of the planes of creativity. Because whenever we're dealing with the water element, now we're dealing with the creativity. So Vedic wise, we're being pushed into a creative mode. Western wise, we've been pushed into a more spiritual mode. Again, just dealing with the element of fire, which is enhancing your sight of the archetypes so that you can understand the archetypal language of the universe versus the waters. This is enhancing your creativity because now it is the time to release all of that pent up energy. And of course, you are doing that creatively because Venus is the strongest planet Vedic wise. So Venus is, especially being conjunct with Neptune, this is again adding the imagination to an expression of art. So Venus, the Vedic perspective is telling, okay, you need to express this energy artistically, push it out artistically. Western wise, use this energy to study the archetypes. Meaning have your eyes on the planets, have your eyes on the stars, basically what we're doing right now. Keep your eyes up instead of, being ultimately too distracted by the cell phones and the distractions. Keep your eyes upward towards the skies. So you can see this is essentially what the spirit is telling us. That's why we're here right now. So I'm essentially demonstrating the energy that the spirit is moving in anyway. However, I'm also bringing into account the Vedic perspective, which is the more artistic perspective. The energy is supposed to be pushed out, and then essentially this is how you're going to create the foundation because this is taking place in Malkuth. It is those waters that you're pushing out of those creative seeds that you're planting because now that the soil is moist because the water is raining down on the soil and then that nourishes the seeds that have been planted. So it's the nourishment that the seeds that you've been planting, now they have their nourishment because you're pushing out all of this energy. So essentially we know that you have to tap into your anima or your animus, even access your magical essence. So Venus is saying activate your creativity because that's going to tap you into your magical essence, which allows these seeds to flourish in a way that benefits you because you decided to be creative with this expression while other people would, just blowing up, getting mad at people, being violent, being just crazy. You decided to focus strictly on your creativity and also upgrading your virtues instead of destroying your virtues. Because this will be a time where people will also again demonstrate the opposites of everything I'm saying. They're going to destroy their virtues instead of bringing them up. And then they're not going to be creative and they're going to, push it out in more destructive ways. So you're going to see both sides. You just make sure you end up on the proper side because you understand what's going on. And you see it's a heavy emphasis and theme on Saturn, aka Satan, aka the cube. Especially when we're talking about Malkuth, because there's a lot of people that, believe in the flat earth. And that's why I say it's not really flat, it's really a fucking cube. Because there's no way something can be 2D in a three-dimensional space. So there's no point of calling something flat if it's 3D. If it's 3D, it must be a cube. But that's Kabbalistic science. If you see the Kabbalah already demonstrates all this. That's why 10 is Malkuth, it's the kingdom, it's the earth. It already shows the earth at the bottom and everything else is rotating around it. It's like this is not moving. So that's why, even that perspective, like the flat earthers, it's like they're not necessarily wrong. It's just incomplete because they don't fuck with this. So it's like everybody's right. It's just almost. For whatever reason, people don't want to fuse the ideas together and then see the complete picture. Everybody just want to stay on the hill that they're on because everybody got pieces of the truth. but it's just fragments. They need to be reassembled. And that's all we strive to do here. That's why even though I'm talking about, the Lima, that's still, I'm encompassing everything. I'm like, let me assemble all of the pieces. That's why I'm like, we don't just stay in the West, we also go to the East. That's why we're talking about both sides now. Because I could, like most people, they're only talking about one side. They're not even giving you both perspectives. They're only giving you their perspective based on what they're comfortable with. But I'm showing you both perspectives so you have a full picture of, okay, how you should utilize your spirit and how you can utilize your soul. What is the soul calling for? The soul wants to be creative. What is the spirit calling for? The spirit wants to be more virtuous. So if you combine that into one, now you get the best of both worlds instead of strictly just focusing on spirit, which is what most people are doing, because it's just naturally to do that, especially here in the West. It's just naturally to be more focused on the spirit. That's just more real to us. That's why when we look at your Western chart, it feels more real to you than when you look at your Eastern chart. You kind of got to contemplate and go within yourself to understand the Eastern chart because it's not on the surface. So you got to take yourself beyond the surface just to understand the Vedic perspective. Versus the Western is pretty much what you see is what you get. It's all these things are pretty much right in your face. You can see it. Versus the soul force, you got to go within to see it. You got to use the third eye, right? You got to tap into the Ajna chakra to even view the Vedic perspective. So that's why a lot of people don't really deal with the Vedic because it ain't something that you are supposed to study on the surface. You got to use the Ajna chakra. All right. So these are just perspectives, potentialities, to make sense of these things, just in a way that, it's not, I don't know who else is going to piece all these elements together. But again, that's why I say, those old ways and those old ideas, they're going to be not really relevant, and that's why we're going through the eighth degree, because after the eighth degree it's a ninth degree, and then we start a new cycle. So essentially 2026 will be a new cycle. So we're going into the final stages this year, and then next year is the final stages of this particular let me say, when did this start? When was the last number one year? The last number one year was, I think it was 2017. Yeah, 2017. So from 2017 to 2025, this has been a particular theme. This has been a particular phase. 2017 to 2025. Well, if I ask myself, well, what was I doing in 2017? Well, that's when I first started going live. That's instant to me. I'm like, okay, 2017 was a year I started going live. Before that, everything was pre-recorded. Once I got that update on my phone, now you can live stream from your phone. That's when I started making I was in LA, now I'm making the Machiavelli magic videos. I'm talking about the four aeons. Like the energy took a whole another turn because now I'm able to speak in real time versus everything being pre-recorded. So that's essentially what I remember. I'm like, okay, 2017. Then when I look at 2025 and then we see how far this has come, and we just have been upgrading, getting better, working on our spirit, doing all these things, just growing and developing. Then we see, okay, by the time we hit 2026, you see now we're on a whole nother level. 2017 was the beginning of something. Now 2025 will be the ending of that, right? Then we go into another level. We go into new chambers. So now you see that's why I've been even going through my personal things. I'm like, all right, it's time for us to start to go into new chambers because now we're going into the last degrees of this particular phase, of this particular cycle. We're going into the final degrees of this. So essentially, this is just me showing how I'm being affected by the energies. Of course, everybody will be affected by these things differently, and again, it depends on, since the sun is the strongest planet, whatever house that the sun rules, that should be the house you're looking towards if you want to really see the energy of the sun. Because the sun is going to rule over the house of Leo. So wherever Leo is, in my particular case on the West Coast, Leo is the second house, the house of resources, the house of income, the house of, this, your all of your sources of income, your values, essentially your daily habits. So in my particular case, the sun, the virtue is saying, okay, you have to be more virtuous in your daily habits. And since you have Leo there, Leo represents the symbol of Leo represents the serpent. It's like, okay, you have to be, and the card of Leo in the Thoth deck is Babylon. Babylon represents the serpent magic or the serpentine force. So basically, what it's saying, okay, that's the second house. The second house, now that in order to increase your sources of revenue, you have to practice a Babylonian rites, and we know the number of Babylon is the number 7, the seven-headed beast or the seven-headed dragon. So it's like practicing with that number 7, opening up access to the portals of Babylon. That's the Western perspective. Eastern perspective, since Venus is the strongest house, Venus rules over Libra and also Taurus. So what are the houses of Venus? Not Venus. What are the houses of Taurus? What is the house of Libra? In the case of the West Coast, Libra rules over the 5th house, and then Taurus rules over the 12th house. So we have the 5th house of pleasure, the 12th house of the unconscious mind. So the spirit wants to have more pleasures in the 12th house. 12th house pleasures. What are 12th house pleasures? That's essentially the spirit world, or the underworld. So essentially, from the spiritual, not the spiritual, the soulful perspective, the soul wants to have more pleasures of the 12th house. Again, that's the house of unlocking your psychic ability. Pleasures, psychic pleasures, you can say. That's another way of saying it. The soul wants to experience more psychic pleasures. Things that you can pull from the unconscious, things you can pull from the psyche, which is essentially the same way of saying opening up portals. Can you open up your own portals and give pleasures to your soul? The soul wants more, essentially more original portals to be opened. So as we see, there's levels upon levels on levels on levels, depending on what perspective you decide to go with, or if you decide to take into consideration both sides. All right? So, and again, Venus is dealing with creativity, the creative, because again, Venus is in Pisces anyway. So Venus is already taking you to the Piscean underworld. Then when you combine that with the 12th house, which represents the hidden worlds and the hidden reality, you combine that with 5. 5 also represents speculation. So to me, that's like cryptocurrency, digital currency, digital assets. The soul wants more digital assets. So if we want to go the technomatic route. So this will be the time to focus more on your techno abilities. So same way I said psychic abilities, also techno abilities. Because sometimes you have to access the psychic world through the techno world or the digital world. That's an essential part of technomancy. People still haven't caught on to this. You access the psychic world through the spirit world or the cyber world. Let me put it in those terms. You got to go through the cyber world to even get into the underworld. So how you draw that up is completely up to you. So again, I'm not going to, be too long-winded here. I just wanted to quickly get to the point. As is happening, the eclipse is still in Texas. Texas is, a huge state, so it's still going through Texas right now. So I say enjoy this new currency. Because again, I'm just giving you an example of how the energies are unfolding in real time, as opposed to me talking about this beforehand. That's why I didn't talk about it beforehand. I'm like, let me just talk about it as it's unfolding, which will give you a more realistic feel of what's going on, because we can see these things happening right in front of us. So, I guess I may be back a little bit later after the eclipse is settled. Then we can revisit some things. But I'm not going to keep this too long. Just ponder on what was said here, and we'll catch up a little bit later. So enjoy your Thelemic holiday, your Thelemic celebration, if that's what you choose to do. 93, 93, 93.